Hi there. I am an AI voice created using the 11 Labs software. This software is being used to allow me to create content whilst protecting my real voice and identity. I hope this does not impact your enjoyment of this video. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is the critically acclaimed sequel to Marvel's Spider-Man on the PS4. Following on from the previous installments in the series, such as Marvel's Spider-Man 1 and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 tells the story of Harry Osborn's symbiotic treatment wreaking havoc across NYC, infecting Peter with the symbiote before returning to Harry as Venom. All the while, Kraven the Hunter yearns for an equal. The game climatically ends with Venom's symbiote takeover thwarted by the Spider-Men, returning Harry to a comatose state and the tease of Green Goblin.
Get the G serum ready. ASAP.
The return of Doc Ock,
the final chapter,
and Cindy Moon's introduction.
Oh, and this is my daughter, Cindy.
Whilst this is a merely brief synopsis, the reception and execution of the story is very diverse amongst the fan base, as is the game itself. Whilst it was nominated to be Game of the Year and became the best-selling PlayStation Studios game to date with 2.5 million copies sold in 24 hours, the game has faced an unusual level of criticism. Fans who were prevalent on social media may remember the Raimi suit death threats, the Puddlegate outrage, or the infamous face change in the Spider-Man PS4 remaster that to this date still has modders and players alike wanting the old face back. But Marvel's Spider-Man 2's criticism is different. Its problems are different. Criticism is not unfamiliar for the Insomniac Spider-Man series to face. But whilst the Raimi suit was added, the Puddlegate was a mere graphical complaint, and the face change was for the betterment of the facial capture. SM2's complaints lie within its core. Welcome to my detailed analysis of the development cycle of Marvel's Spider-Man 2. And the answer to how a game with so much potential faced development challenges and even greater ones past its release, ultimately delivering the most divisive entry in the Marvel's Spider-Man series. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was officially announced on the 9th of September 2021. The trailer depicts Kraven narrating his desire to find an equal, as footage on screen shows Peter and Miles working in unison to defeat a bunch of criminals we now know are Kraven's hunters. Once the criminals are defeated, Peter and Miles stand side by side in an alleyway, onlooking Venom, who says, "We will." In response to Kraven questioning if somebody will give him an equal. This trailer was the first insight to the villains of the game, Kraven and Venom, sparking a lot of speculative discussion and hype over what this could mean for the two Spider-Men. It was also the insight into a cutscene that never made it into the final product, despite being used in marketing repeatedly and eventually becoming a meme. With the trailer ending on the bittersweet note of 2023 being the release date, an entire 2 years away, fans were left to discuss the game as a way to bypass the time until a next announcement or piece of news came to light. Except, it never did. This could be considered the first oddity surrounding the game, as these 2 years consisted of pure radio silence. There was no way of knowing if development was going smoothly, how the game was coming along, or if we could still expect a release in 2023. No communication was given. Even as of today, we have no idea if this was a conscious decision or if Insomniac were facing challenges behind the scenes. However, considering how future events unfold, it seems plausible these 2 years had some form of disruption, hindering the game's progress. Either way, it didn't matter for a mere 6 months after the trailer. Speculation had either dried up or become a repeat of previous ideas. Fans grew fatigued, and a whole wave of memes erupted out of sheer boredom, a monotonous and chaotic scene that became a tool into making the wait more bearable. By the time 2023 rolled around, marketing was slow to kick into gear. Hopes for a release the same year had dimmed, yet some persisted. The silence would have to be broken soon. After all, 2023 had been the promised release, So even if no more news was to be revealed, a delay had to be published. Thankfully, or perhaps not with the hindsight of later events, that was not the case. On the 21st of March 2023, Tony Todd tweeted that the game was releasing in September, being deleted soon after. This garnered attention, with fans' hopes being reignited that the game was still on track. However, it took until the 24th of May 2023, 622 days after the reveal trailer, for any more news to be shared. Here, PlayStation held a state of play, where after a fake conclusion at the end,
To thank all of you for your unwavering support for PlayStation.
they unveiled one more thing.
You grow slow in your old age, Sergei. A fate you will not share.
A 12-minute, 25-second gameplay reveal for Marvel's Spider-Man 2. Fans were ecstatic. Symbiote Spidey was revealed in all his glory. Chasing down the lizard in a city-wide chase, new symbiote abilities were shown. The ability to switch between the two Spider-Men was displayed, and Miles had a new electrifying set of abilities. This was it. A huge upgrade to its predecessor. The game looked to be a marvel, no pun intended, and to many it was, even after release. However, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 wasn't as good as it could have been. After months of hype, further marketing and discussion revolving around the game, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 officially went gold on the 20th of September 2023, a month prior to release. This meant development was finished and discs were being printed, a revolutionary announcement to signal the game is coming and the developers are ready to launch. It wasn't until the 16th of October 2023, when review footage leaked online, that the game's state was unveiled. The game was missing textures, suits particularly, crimes didn't spawn, or disappeared when heading to them. Time of day was not included. The social media, characters, and podcast tabs were missing, and NG Plus was not available at launch. The story was intact, but the little details that livened the world of the previous games were simply gone. The next day, Insomniac issued an announcement regarding a Day 1 update that ended up equating to 37 gigabytes of data. With this, an entire list of things were changed, ranging from small changes such as the lighting being reworked and changing colors, to animations and voice lines being removed, then eventually, even entire cutscenes being shortened and models fully changing. All these changes, equating to hundreds, created an entirely different experience in version 1.0 and the Day 1 patch. As the Day 1 patch was mandatory, the majority of players will never have seen the original version, but a playthrough of it exists on YouTube. Unfortunately, even after the patch, the game was buggy, often having players turn into white cubes, crimes disappearing, enemies spawning in walls, or other typical video game glitches occurring. Despite this, the game was still an enjoyable experience. However, the fans who missed the tiny world-building details remained consistent, even months after its launch. Other fans also criticized the story, saying it was a large takeaway from the style and quality of writing in previous games. These criticisms were a minority, not as apparent in the wider media, but were vocal towards the story not being as impactful and feeling rushed, especially towards Act 3. This wasn't a far-fetched statement, as during a writer's interview on October 27, 2023, a week after the game's launch, one of the writers was asked if they had thought about a Miles symbiote arc and pleaded the fifth. This led an even larger speculation the game was rushed. Aside from the pointers of Insomniac's retraction of going gold and the 2 years of silence prior, This would become more popular when Tony Todd revealed at a panel at Fan Expo San Francisco from November 24th to 26, 2023, that only 10% of his recorded lines made it into the final product. If this wasn't enough already, though, only 3 weeks later, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 would face its biggest challenge yet. On the 13th of December 2023, an infamous ransomware group called Reseda would abruptly declare on social media that they had gained access to millions of files belonging to Insomniac Games and Sony as an entirety, which they would leak if they were not paid a hefty ransom sum of $2 million in Bitcoin. This sum would have to be paid within 7 days, otherwise they would publicly unveil all information they had acquired. Insomniac Games and Sony had chosen not to pay the group, a smart choice to avoid the acceptance of their crime, but a move that would cost them greatly. On the 20th of December 2023, the Reseda ransomware group followed through on their threat, releasing 1.7 terabytes worth of confidential documents, footage, and information on both the employees and company. This included game licenses, game pitches, developer footage, roadmaps, financial statements, passports, and other personal information of employees working or associated with Insomniac Games. Overall, the leak equated to 1.2 million files, now publicly available to search anywhere at any time. As expected, Insomniac underwent a heavy toll, forced to rebuild their entire security infrastructure and prioritize the safety and privacy of its employees. Millions were spent in this process. Fans grew in concern over what this would mean for the company, and the data became curiously depicted within a matter of hours. Marvel's Spider-Man 2, as with every single in-development project, was obviously halted, and fans soon discovered pieces of what was leaked. Entire lists were composed, and the sheer amount unveiled is incomprehensible. There was a canceled Spider-Man multiplayer game known as The Great Web, filled with roadmaps of seasons, concept art, and pitches, containing 2 entire trailers built off of the back of SM2. There was a presentation for Spider-Man 3, showcasing concept art of Green Goblin, projected sales, the launch price, and the idea of being split in 2. Another pitch for an upcoming Venom game, with a synopsis of Carnage as the villain, detailing game length, its launch price, and the idea of playable Venom. The Wolverine game, announced in 2021, had footage of mocap, gameplay, and dev tests shown, as well as multiple fully functioning builds that became reworked by eager players, who soon ported it to PC and the Steam Deck, patching together what they had into a playable state. The leaks even showed an entire roadmap of Insomniac games releasing up until 2030. Including the licensing terms for an X-Men game that year. The company had the next decade worth of its plans plastered openly on the internet. As for Spider-Man 2, the disappointment and criticism people already felt of it being rushed or underdeveloped were made worse by the dev footage, models, and cut DLC that it had leaked. Life Foundation symbiotes, meant to appear in the third act, were all shown, consisting of Riot, Lasher, Phage, and Agony. A Riot boss fight was unveiled, as well as the basis of a PC build and the entirety of New Game Plus. DLC showed Beetle, Carnage, and even the Spider-Verse, each with their own missions and open-world additions. Much alike Wolverine, it was barely a week before an unofficial PC port of Spider-Man 2 was being developed by fans piecing together the PC files already in the game. It would then only be 4 months before the unofficial port was finished, and looked on par with the PS5 version. With all the ensuing chaos, Insomniac would issue a statement on the 22nd of December 2023, thanking fans for their support, reassuring them they were continuing development on Marvel's Wolverine, and will reveal information when they are ready to. All the other games and DLC were left unmentioned, purely up to interpretation if they were still being worked on, or if they were simply canceled ideas that never made it past the suggestion phase. This uncertainty would continue, as Insomniac would go back into radio silence, stating they had nothing to announce on social media anytime they were asked. This caused a surge in SM2 complaints, with fans knowing DLC was thought of at some point, and even potentially in development, but not mentioned, and the game having far more content that was cut. This is where the divisive nature truly came to fruition. Fans on social media became very critical of the game and Insomniac as a whole, comparing it to the first installment that they stated had a lot more care and labor put into it. For anyone outside of these social media communities, the issue may as well been non-existent, for you'd never know the finer details and complaints the game had when it had become a bestseller and highly rated outside of the media. Months later, on the 21st of February 2023, Insomniac would release a trailer revealing 2 new Fly-In Fresh suits as part of a donation to Gameheads, an organization supporting underrepresented groups of people within the tech industry. These suits were a £5 suit pack, the price being a way for users to purchase them and donate to the cause. The suits would go free at a later date, though did not specify what date. Many fans ignored the suits, though, as those who were eagle-eyed fans spied unseen footage in the trailer they were shown in. A new cutscene proudly displayed on a large TV screen in the background, showing Peter texting MJ. Due to this, things began looking more hopeful that more content was on the way, especially as the highly anticipated new game was finally added not long after on the 7th of March 2024. Except, in this update, Insomniac would accidentally leave a debug menu in the game, granting further access to the games behind the scenes. Fans discovered they could load unused areas, skip ahead to complete the entirety of NG+, become invincible or mess around with free roaming with characters, editing crime, and open-world activities. Yet, the most impressive discovery was an entire mission list for the Beetle DLC. Those from before, who targeted the unknown cutscene, became even more thrilled to learn more about the DLC being worked on. However, they'd never see it again, as the same day, Insomniac would issue a warning that people could break their saves if they tried to use the debug menu and forced a mandatory update to remove it the day after. Insomniac then wouldn't announce anything again until June 11th, announcing the week after would drop 4 new suits designed by celebrities and fashion brands, as well as 4 older suits from the first game, including the Last Stand suit, Into the Spider-Verse Peter suit, Animated Miles suit, and Uptown Pride suit. Whilst many fans saw this an appreciated addition, the celebrity and fashion designer suits were criticized for their poor design and the decision to include them over other highly requested suits from the comics. Nonetheless, it was a free update that also came with some bug fixes, which were needed because despite the previous bug fixes sporadically released since the game's launch, crimes were still disappearing. This would be the last major update the game ever got, excluding a tiny patch the week after. From here, things stopped. Radio silence returned. Fans began questioning where the DLC was, hyping themselves up for each PlayStation or Marvel event, asking the social media account relentlessly what was happening, and as each week ticked by, they became increasingly concerned, and more so disappointed the game might be over. Despite the criticisms, DLC was still wanted by many, and with the so-called hints at new content so far, people expected it was ready. Unknown to most fans, this is around the time the voice actor strikes happened in July 2024. This was likely the nail in the coffin for a game already struggling with a series of challenges and slow patches post-2023, as they could not record new lines or use their voice actors at all. Heading into fall 2024, this strike persisted and fans realized the game was over, fed up of asking and waiting, only to receive a message that Insomniac had nothing to announce right now. There was no DLC. The game's support was over. Any remainder of hope was shattered on the 18th of October 2024, when almost a year since the game's launch, Insomniac announced SM2 would be ported officially to PC in January 30th, 2025, confirming no more story content was planned. With the news, SM2 reached its end. To many, it was an impressive game, with high potential that ultimately delivered an experience that, whilst great, was not the best it could have been.